guys are in for a big treat tonight. Excellent panelists, and I've researched them all, so I'll tell you exactly why they're well suited for this conversation. But I'm going to introduce them up on the stage. Nadav obviously is going to be part of the panel, so he'll be with us today. But first I'll introduce Jeffrey Katzenberg. Jeffrey's the founding partner at WonderCo Ventures. He's also the co-founder of DreamWorks Hollywood Animation and the former chairman of Walt Disney. So nice background, Jeffrey. Sujay Jashwa is also going to be with us tonight, and Sujay is also the founding partner of WonderCo Ventures, and he's the former CFO of Dropbox. Okay, great. So first, I have to thank Oh, go ahead.
I always feel like people should introduce Jeffrey after me, because that intro is a tough one to follow.
He is a tough one to follow, I think, for all of us, but you guys are all qualified. So why are you in for a treat tonight? Well, first let me thank Team8 for having us here. As Nadav said, we've been partnering with Team8 since the beginning of time, since the inception of the firm. Nobody does venture better than Team8. We learn so much from them every single day, but the one thing that they do exceptionally well, better than any other firm that I've ever been encountered, is putting on events like this and creating a sense of community in a really intimate and authentic way, and you feel that energy in the room tonight. So I just want to thank Team8 for putting this on, first of all, and having us here, always making us feel welcome in Israel. And then why are you in for a treat tonight? Well, it's because I did my homework on these panelists. And if you see the background of these individuals, there are no three people who are more qualified to talk about optimism, leading through positivity, and getting results from leading through positivity, and being an accomplished individual in these three people. And in doing my research, I started to look into what makes an optimistic person tick. And the reason I had to do that research is I am not an optimistic person. I'm a realist, borderline cynical, actually, and get judged for that quite frequently. So I wanted to find out what is it about these people that makes them so special. And there's one thing, one common thread that all optimistic people seem to embody, and every single definition of optimism has in it. And do you know what that is?
Delusion.
Well, I'm supposed to say that. It's confidence. Confidence in yourselves, confidence in your ability to engender and inspire others to help you lead and be a part of your mission, and then also confidence in the fact that you're sure that you're going to get the outcome that you want. And so part of what I want tonight to be about is to help educate me and other cynics in the room on how you engendered that sense of confidence and self-assurance and how to lead from a place of confidence. So just think of that as we go through this Q&A journey. So in addition to confidence, there's two other things that the three panelists have in common: entrepreneurship and driving innovation. No one would argue that these three are not entrepreneurial. And Jeffrey, I want to start with you, because to be an entrepreneur, you really have to start from nothing. You have to be confident, and you're starting new things in the face of people telling you no, and often in the face of conflict or dealing with setbacks. You co-founded DreamWorks with Steven Spielberg and David Geffen after Disney, and then you went on to start WonderCo after that. But as you were leaving Disney, there was some widely publicized conflict and some challenging environments there that you had to deal with. And so how, after an experience like that, did you then go on and start these amazing, two phenomenal companies? What was that experience for you like, and what did you draw on internally to do it?
Well, that's a lot of questions. Wow. All right,
Yeah.
I'll do my best. I want to start with just saying wearing this hat is out of character for me. It's not a Hollywood thing. I met a door in France this morning, so just a little self-conscious about the patch. It's also really, really great to be back here in Israel. I have not been here in way too long, but just in the day that we've been here, just the energy, the enthusiasm, the optimism, I just find it inspiring. And so thank you for letting us be a part of this. So maybe I will just tell you two things. I'm not sure they hit exactly the bullseye of this. One is a physical attribute or liability that I have. So I'm dyslexic. There you go. And you know, I think when we have physical things that are impediments, it's just incredible how the body and the mind learns to compensate for them. And I'm always just so blown away by, you know, how people, you know, come out of those challenges, and many times the thing that's their greatest liability, in fact, becomes their greatest asset. So I will just tell you that for me, one of the sort of, you know, most common things about dyslexia is that you interpose words and letters. So reading's really, really, really a challenge. I am convinced that my entire life, I have always been reading what you all would see as N-O as O-N. I don't know the word no.
Yeah.
Never seen it, never read it, never.
That's awesome.
So the other thing which I learned very early on, and I learned this, I've had fantastic mentors and partners in my career. I mean, really like the great all-star group of people, and people ask often, like, what do you attribute your success to? And I have to say, I have to give as much credit as possible to those people that believed in me many times before I even believed in myself. So Barry Diller, Michael Eisner, David Geffen, Steven Spielberg, Sujay, Jashwa, you're about to see.
Sujay, you made the cut. You got it.
He does. But here's one of the earliest lessons that I learned, which is, and this has been true of every chapter of everything that I have done in my career, whether it's about making stories or movies or television or animation or Broadway shows or looking at companies, founding companies, you know, being entrepreneurial, you know, incubating, it applies across all of them. And here's the simplest thing in the world. If you're going to do something that is unique and original, which is kind of by definition what we're all in. Like, we're not repeating what someone else has done. We're actually setting out to pioneer and do something that is unique and original. So by definition, if something is unique and original, it equals risky. Has to. And, by the way, if something is risky, then it means at some point there has to be some accommodation for failure. If you're not allowed, if you are not, by circumstances, by structure, by finance, whatever it is, if there isn't some room, some allowance for failing, then you won't take a risk. And if you don't take a risk, then you're not going to do something that is unique and original. And so in the enterprises that I've been involved in, we're involved together, is that obviously no one sets out for failure, but there needs to be some accommodation for that. And I can tell you, because I've had plenty of failures, I have believed in almost every instance. My failures have been my greatest lessons. They're painful. Some of them have been quite public and well known, and you know, they're really like just flat out nose plants. But you know, I would just say I own my failures. I don't run from them. I don't hide from them. I don't make excuse for them. I don't blame someone else for them. I own them, and I think it's a really important thing to be able to do. And you know, there's that old phrase, anything that doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And failure's part of the equation. So again, don't set out for it, but I feel like it needs to be somewhere, you know, in the, you know, enterprise that you start out with.
Yeah. Wow, that's admirable. Getting strength from a failure rather than dwelling in it as a cynic.
Quippy.
That's not typically what we do. Okay, great. So let's shift gears actually to Nadav. I want to see how this dynamic plays out, not only in venture, but you wear many hats. You're a company builder, you're an investor, technology investor, you're an Israeli, you're wearing all of these hats. We're right now in a very complicated macroeconomic climate, geopolitical climate like we've never seen. How are you finding optimism and positivity and leading from that place during a time like this? Like, where do you find that strength and that confidence?
Yeah, I think Jeffrey said a lot of it. I mean, it's what we do, right? We're in venture. People like in Hebrew, when you say venture capital, it's called hon sikun. They like the capital. They're not crazy about the venture or the risk. But it's our business. It's what we do. On the entrepreneurial side, I think it's quite simple. Sarit, my partner, spoke about this is a great time to start new companies, and I think at Team 8 we're well poised to start new companies because of the support system we have, because we're very methodical, as Yuval said, because we have incredible partners. So I'm actually quite happy about that. On the macroeconomics, my partner Rakefet tells me that things that go up must go down. I'm not crazy about it, but I'm waiting for them to go back up at some time. And on the Israeli side, this is not an easy time to be an Israeli. A lot of you, first of all, thank you for everybody that's a non-Israeli for coming here. This is an incredible little country in the Middle East that plays way above its weight, and this is a complicated time for us. But I'll tell you why I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic because every Saturday night, and for those of you who haven't been, I invite you to join us at Kaplan Street. We have, across the country, up to 500,000 people protesting on the streets for 29 weeks. For the Americans in the room, we're the size of New Jersey. So if that would happen in the United States, you would have anywhere between 20 to 30 million walking down the streets peacefully. And actually, some of my friends from the forums that we all do are here in the room, and they're true leaders that are taking risks to protect the democracy in this country. So I'm optimistic. And then finally, I have to be, I don't know if she's here, but my daughter was supposed to be here. There she is. She's enlisting to the IDF a year from now. And so for her sake, I have to be an optimist.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, Israelis, being an American, I can say this, have a certain fortitude, and I think a lot of that is because of the military training and the obligation to serve in the military, and I can imagine that helps build the confidence that then enables you to be an optimistic person. Did you have something you wanted to add to that?
I just think, Sujay has such a great perspective of, having really started his investing career in the sort of last 2008-9 and saw what came on the other side of it. And, you should really just talk to that in terms of today feeling, how the best opportunities are likely to come in this next year or two.
So what Jeffrey's referring to is that in 2008, I joined the venture firm NEA, which I think has a pretty active presence out here. And that was a little bit analogous to the time right now, which was that super hard for venture capital firms to raise money, which translated to it was super hard for startups to raise money. On top of that, there had been this total wipeout of the clean tech sector, where tens or maybe hundreds of billions of dollars had gone into it. And it was basically, at the time, it felt like zeros across the board. Tesla might have single-handedly rescued that entire investment period. But so when I joined, there were really two interesting things. The first was that the people who were trying to start companies to get rich quickly, they all disappeared. It was obvious no one was going to get rich quickly. And so what you were left with were the entrepreneurs who understood that they were on like a 15, 20-year journey to go do something that was important to them. And that's the time horizon that I think you have to look at with this stuff. So one interesting thing. So a question that I just asked a group, and it was funny to see the responses. So entrepreneurs these days, especially in Silicon Valley, have been talking a lot about, oh, this is the next $100 billion company. We're building a $100 billion company. In the last 20 years, so since 2000, 23 years, I'm just going to do a quick straw poll here. How many companies are there that were founded after 2000, or 2000 or after, that are currently publicly traded at over $100 billion market cap in the US or Europe? How many of you think it's over 15? 10 to 15? 5 to 10? 0? All right, the answer is 3.
Wow.
Facebook, Tesla, and barely over the hump is ServiceNow. That's it. And so I think a big part of building something great is and kind of to your question originally about optimism, is about having like a realistic grounding in what the journey is going to look like. So I was, when Nadav, when you were speaking, there was John McCain, who was a U.S. presidential candidate, but was earlier most famous for being a POW in Vietnam. Somebody asked him, I was watching this interview about how optimistic did you have to be to survive those years as a POW? And he said, all the optimists didn't make it. It was the people who had the goal that they were going to make it and were realistic about the challenges and the mental and physical challenges that they were going to encounter, and they had a plan to overcome that. They were the ones. They had the optimistic goal that they were going to make it, but they weren't delusional. Because it's so easy when something is that long and hard to get that, to just get broken. And so I thought that's very applicable actually in this context to what it's going to be like. For those great entrepreneurs that are starting things right now, it's, competition for talent is going to be less. Customers are going to understand that if you're getting funded right now, you must have real substance. It's not just hype. There's a real opportunity to build something great, but it's going to be a journey.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's inherent in venture, right? We have to be able to pick ourselves up if something doesn't go right and have the right attitude going into it. I wanted to ask you two about there's a current investment, Aura, that you're invested in. It's tremendous growth, very important for personal security, and I'm sure you're very passionate about it. But that's sort of coming off the heels of Quibi, which didn't do so well and the doors ended up shutting on that investment. How, after coming off of Quibi, are you now so optimistic and passionate? How do you muster that unwavering perseverance to now?
So one thing, we started Aura before Quibi.
Oh, okay.
I just want to make that clear. Jeffrey
Okay,
can answer
good.
the question, but I just want to be sure about that.
Well,
The only thing I want to say is that, when we started investing now about 6 years or so, 6-7 years ago, 2/3 of our investment was targeted at SaaS, future of work, and in particular, cybersecurity. And I'm going to let Sujay actually talk about a little bit about that journey. 1/3 of it was digital media. Digital media has revealed itself in the last 3 or 4 years to be, I would use the word tragic. Like, there's no one in digital media that has found a path out of that. All the value has ended up going to the distribution platforms. And we recognized that about 3 years or so ago, and honestly just pivoted out of it. And just, we keep looking just to see when is that next, TikTok or Snap or whatever, and we get to see everything, because of my history in the space. But frankly, we were very, very practical about, just pivoting out of, what was just not a great space. Sujay should talk about what we've been doing with consumer cybersecurity in particular, because it's somewhat different, I think, from what most people in the room are doing, and it's turned out to be pretty spectacular for us.
Yeah, let's hear about it, Sujay.
Yeah, so the simple premise of it was that for consumers who don't have a lot of mind share to think about cybersecurity, we've all been kind of boiled like frogs online. Everybody here knows you should never reuse your password. You shouldn't, share certain information with different websites. We all just do it anyways. It's just the price of being online. And, it felt a little crazy to us. But at the same time, we knew that for people in our kind of general demographic, most of us aren't going to do much about it. But when it came to protecting our children and elderly parents, that was, families, that was the catalyst that would cause some people, not everyone, to do something. And Aura was intended to be a super simple, one-stop solution to cover all of your personal security and privacy needs for your entire family. Just crossed 100 million of revenue. It's grown at a great clip. We have an awesome partner in the founder CEO who we created it with. And then we've actually done a bunch of other things in consumer cybersecurity, most of which we put in a company called Pango, which I was the CEO for a year, which meant I came here a lot because we have a number of employees out here. And that business last year was just under 200 million of revenue, just under 100 million of free cash flow, an awesome business. And our goal, like the dream, is that can we provide something that allows regular people to protect themselves mostly online? It won't be a 100% perfect solution, but it should be something that's almost like wearing a seatbelt in the car. You use it, it does a really good job most of the time, and it continuously gets better so you don't have to think about it.
Yep, great. And so this week is all about cybersecurity, right? It's a celebration of cybersecurity. I think we all feel that in the air. It's interesting that the theme, it's no mistake that this theme is optimism and positivity, because cybersecurity is inherently kind of a fearful thing, right? We talk about the evolving threat landscape, the fact that it's escalating, there's breaches, there's crisis, and we all have to deal with that in the cyber world. And so I think it's important that all of us have some sort of inspiration, something that we can point to in cyber that makes us, that really feeds our optimistic nature. Jeffrey, I've read a little bit about you and some of the charitable acts that you do and how that plays into your life. I know I find inspiration in cyber through the diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts that we do at Night Dragon, building the cybersecurity workforce, making sure that we're providing education to a diverse audience, the underprivileged and the underserved. For each of you, what is that thing, that special thing in cyber that kind of enables your positivity? Starting with you, Jeffrey.
Well, it's super simple, which is, we're doing good while doing good. And
Yeah.
I know, I feel like we are on a mission. And, I don't know what the statistics are here, but in the US, if you go back 3 years ago, burglary, physical break-ins were $3.4 billion, and digital theft was $3.2 billion. And 2 years ago, it went from 3.4 burglary to 3.8, and then the next year went to 4.2. That 3.2 billion digital theft went from 3.2 to 6.3 to over $10 billion. So this is, for us, and certainly in North America, just out of control.
Yeah.
And it's the people who are being preyed upon are our seniors. It's people over 65 and 70 years old. The complexity of being able to protect them has just gotten the bar is so difficult and so high in it. And Aura his ambition is to actually, and to give you control as a parent, where you've got great parental controls around what your kids are doing and what's being done to them online. And it's a great mission and makes me feel good. And, I just, people always say, well, how does that compare to making Beauty and the Beast or Lion King or Shrek? And I'm going, feels just as good, if not better.
Yeah.
So.
And with that target demographic, he's really making products for himself again.
I think I'm in it now, too.
So just one thing to say is, Jeffrey, you may not know this, is that he never put his name on his movies. And so the only Oscar he won wasn't for a movie at all. It was actually for his philanthropic work. And from working with him, I don't know, talking to him 10 times a day for the last 7 years, I have never, there's a lot of people like me, there's only one person that I've ever met like him. He is dedicated not just to the firm, but to the community, to the city, to the country in ways that I have never seen someone who is so insanely busy have that kind of commitment to helping others. Most of it things you'll never hear about. And I think the way you got inspired to do that story might be something interesting for everyone to hear.
My dad?
Well, your dad and also the movie star.
Yeah, Michael Douglas.
Do we have time here?
Hey, go
All right.
for it.
Yeah,
So philanthropy has been a part of my life, and I've had what Sujay is referring to as two incredible mentors, and so a combination of getting involved in politics as a young kid and appreciating how important government is and how important the safety net of, what government provides to every citizen, or meant to provide for every citizen, the optimism of that, and for people that are in needs, or whether it's literally a traffic light, the heroicness of your daughter going into service. You cannot overemphasize the value and the importance of, of service. And I learned that at a very young age, and to this day, as you were all out fighting to actually defend your democracy. In my own way, I'm doing the exact same thing in my country, where we have many of the same challenges and issues and problems. And, at some point, we may have to turn 25 million people out into the streets, in which case I'll be right at the front line. In any event, the two lessons that I learned, one was from my dad. So my father was a very successful stockbroker in New York, late in the 1950s, when I was about 8 years old, 9 years old. Every day my father would put this little wad of $100 bills in his front left-hand pocket when he left the house. And I noticed this. I didn't notice it before, but he'd been doing it for ever. And when he would walk out, any place, anywhere, somebody did something for him, he gave him a $100 tip. And he usually folded it up in which you actually couldn't see the denomination of the amount that. So this is 1958, just so you know. So if literally, you know, a waiter or a waitress in the restaurant, a busboy, somebody playing the guitar in the street with their guitar case open, a maid in a hotel room, anybody that did anything for him, he gave him $100. And I said to him one day, I was watching this, and I noticed, didn't see other people doing it. I said to him, why do you do this? And he said, well, have you ever looked behind us? And I went, no. He said, well, tomorrow when we go out, do me a favor, look behind us and tell me what you see. So through the eyes of an 8-year-old, when I looked behind us the next day, I didn't say what you would say to him, what you would think you might say, which is, I see a smile on their face. I said, I see happiness. And he said, absolutely. And he said, I believe that you should take care of those who cannot take care, you should take care of those that take care of you and those that cannot take care of themselves. And I thought, wow, that is a powerful, powerful thing. I just want to translate this so you understand. He did this anywhere from 3 to 10 times a day. $100 in 1958 is $1,100 today. He changed people's lives, right? So you think about that if you're doing it. So the next one is, also when I was about 8 or 9 years old, he took me to see a movie, and the movie is a film called Spartacus. Anybody ever seen Spartacus? You know Spartacus? So then in the 1958, 59, when the movie came out, Spartacus was like Batman today or Superman. Like he was this incredibly heroic character. So I had this incredible impression of him. Jump about 30 years later, I'm making a movie at Disney called Tough Guys, and it's the last movie with Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas starring in it. They were about 75 years old. Anyway, make a long story short, I go visit Kurt on a lunch break one day. He's in his trailer, and he's got all these engineers, and they have these plans, blueprints and stuff, and I walk in, and he says, okay, everybody, we're done for today. They all left, and I said to him, what are you doing? Like, what are those guys doing? He said, well, my wife and I have been doing this program over, the last 15 years or so. I said, well, what kind of a program? He said, we've been rebuilding the playgrounds of public high schools and junior high schools in the city of Los Angeles. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we've been just, every year we do, 15, 20 school playgrounds, and we just completely refurbish them. I said, wow, how do you, He said, well, it's, they're from $50,000 to $250,000. I said, how many of you have done? I said, first of all, how many of them are there? He said, about 450. I said, how many have you done? And at the time, don't hold me to, I think it was about 180 that he had done. And I said to him, wow, like, why are you doing that? And he said to me the most important, words that I think that, anybody's ever said to me. He said, you haven't learned how to live until you've learned how to give. And when you hear those words out of Spartacus, you remember them.
So I know we're over time, but that's a great place to end this. I think we started with leading through optimism really requires some sort of confidence, and the best way to build confidence in yourselves and be proud of yourselves is to give back. And so that's an area where I'd encourage all of us to really look inside and figure out what makes you feel good in terms of building that in yourselves. Is it giving back to the community? Is it working out? Is it eating better? Whatever it is, that's going to help all of us be better in cyber.